we're live.
Try this again.
Guys, I'm sorry about that. I had no idea I was going to do that.
Okay. Are we live now?
On Facebook, just to let everyone know we're coming over to YouTube.
More.
We are the Bright Kids account on YouTube, and you'll see my face in a couple of screens for the videos, as well as some bright, colorful videos about G&T. That's the account that we are under. Hopefully you guys will be able to find us, because unfortunately Facebook doesn't want me to actually post the URL in the comments on the video. Okay. So we will try this. Wait a moment, see if you would get
more people in. Yep. Okay, this is I'm sitting.
Now that I have my volume on, I can hear Big A. Apologies for that. I had the video going in a couple screens to try to figure out what's going on.
Exactly. Just looking through my phone. Having some issues. Exactly. Just looking through my phone. Having some. Let me know, Danielle, when you want me to get started.
Yeah, I'm making sure that it's showing up on YouTube now. I see us right on our main page. I think you'll see me making sure that it's showing up on. There we go. Okay, so we are over here. We see, I think, only me right now. That so I can turn my volume back on. Okay. We see two people. Anyone else made their way over from Facebook? I'm checking the comments on over there for us. Big A. Then once we do get a chance at the end, we'll go delete the extra videos just to make sure that no one gets confused about which stream to watch. Okay, I think it might have gone live on Facebook now. Okay. So everyone could give me a thumbs up in the new video comments on Facebook, just to make sure that you guys are here so you don't miss any information. Again, we do apologize for the technical difficulties. This is what we get for not having our afternoon coffee. Okay, I see 20 of you guys here, so I think we'll get started talking. To introduce what we're going to be doing this evening.
Sure. Well, again, apologies. My name is Big A. I am the founder and CEO of Bright Kids. I founded this company about 12 years ago, and with realizing that there has to be a better way to do things with all the testing, the admissions, the consulting. I have successfully placed 3 kids into top private and public schools of my own children and helped many, many families over the years. And my goal is that to make sure that we want to have these live streams, and because we found out this year, especially with COVID, there's a lot of misinformation out there about private schools, entry requirements, and how competitive it is. So we wanted to have a town hall to talk about this, because I have helped many, many families over the years to do this, and I want to help everyone. As a result, anyone who's live in this session who comes on gets a 15-minute free consultation with me. You can sign up for that on our webpage, www.bright-kids.com. If you go to private school admissions, you can click on one schedule, and you can schedule a 15 minutes of free time with me as well. I also want to introduce Danielle, who's my right hand. She's been with me for 8 years. And we work together with many, many families. What you might want to ask is what's different about our admissions process. We focus not just on the family, but also on the kids. So we look at the total picture. Most of the families over the years that I have done an admission consultant with is because, we have the children and we have the family, so we have a better picture. because our teachers know the kids, we know the kids, and we believe that we can create a better story for your family in terms of how to approach private school admissions. So, that's why I wanted to start working on this with everyone, because this year, as you know, has been very challenging on many, many fronts. And I sort of wanted to get the record straight about, what's really important about private school admissions this year. So, Danielle, do you have anything to add or anything to sort of talk through?
I would say that even the people that feel the most prepared throughout this whole process have been thrown some curveballs over the past year. So we've been trying our best to figure out how we can best help families. And we think that just reaching out to you guys more and putting some more information out there about how you can find some helpful resources and contact us and see our faces about all of this.
Right,
really
exactly.
help everyone feel a bit better about this whole process moving forward.
Right. So, so several things, like things have changed, and also not much has changed with the private school admissions. So that's sort of what I want to first talk about. One is about sort of mobility, the New York City, what's happening. Families are coming back. Apartment leases are up, 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 up. Summer is coming. We don't really, as much as many people have maybe moved out of the city, many have also moved in. So that's one trend that we see. So the second trend that we see is there's more of an influx into private and Catholic schools, than Catholic schools being a subset of the private schools, than before, because of the uncertainty about the Department of Education, their approach to education this year. I don't want to get into that too much here because there's an entire plethora of information out there about it. But parents who want to get their kids now stay in New York City are looking more and more into private schools. So the first sort of myth that I want to kind of say is that the competition is not any less. In fact, we think it's more. And also it's different. So the top schools, the competitiveness is not going to change. So if you're looking at sort of the so-called the perceived top schools as Spence and Collegiate and Dalton and Trinity, and the numbers are not going to change there. So we in fact think, like I said before, it's going to get worse. So this year, I really am recommending all my families to get super, super ready, extra ready. I mean, this is sort of like, one, making sure getting organized early on, make sure you attend the tours, the virtual tours, the real tours, networking, making sure networking with all the families that you might know at those schools. That's really, really important. And third is, if you're in a preschool, in a private preschool, making sure getting that appointment in with your preschool director. That's going to be key going forward as well. So doing all the steps, but doing even more. It's really, really critical that you approach this process this year very systematically and actually a bit more in depth than before. The second is, last year, in terms of for your child, they had the thinking and engagement test. We still think this is ongoing, but they may change it. We don't really know at the end of the day. That's not a factor we can control. But what we know for sure is that your child will be assessed one way or another, whether it's through a Zoom, whether it's through a play date, whether it's one-on-one. It's really going to matter. They're not going to admit, private schools are not going to admit children in without some sort of assessment. And in terms of preparation, we believe that earlier on is better, especially this year where many kids have had not as much social interaction. We know that for a fact. So as the COVID cases hopefully are declining, people are getting out there more. It's really important, we believe, that this year to start early in preparing your child for these social situations, whether it's for test prep, whatever it may be. But early start this year, we think, is going to be really crucial. Anything else, Danielle, you want to add about the kids?
No, I would say just especially this year, like Bigay said, as in any year, but especially this year, the social interaction is a huge part of any of the admissions processes, because the schools do want to make sure that they'll have kids that will get along well with each other and in the classroom and be a wonderful part of their school environment.
Right. Also, it's really important to make sure that apply to more schools maybe this year. I mean, this is something that I know it's not easy, but I think keeping an open mind, I think if especially your goal is to go to a private school is really important.
And especially since we see a lot of the schools keeping the T&E around, it's one thing that you're doing and it'll apply to all the different schools that are taking it. So
Sure.
It can't hurt to fill out a couple extra applications.
Yeah, and the most important thing is building a case for yourself and your family, including your child. And this is where I spend majority of my time with my clients about putting together a proper picture of your family, writing the right things on the essay, really reflecting, who you really are to the admissions director and why you should be the better candidate over others. That's what I do when I consult with families. A big chunk of our time is really spent on school selection, and then also about how you phrase yourself, how you write your essays, what you put in the application, what you shouldn't do. Believe it or not, after been doing this for 12 years, there are some real rules here. And it's important to, if you want to schedule a consultation with me initially, we can sort of talk about what we need to do. But this is something that I emphasize quite a bit. I want to help the families, and I just don't want I've seen a lot of, for some reason this year, like clients have come to me that I take very few families, and the clients who have come to me with a lot of misinformation. And through my consultation sessions, I've had to actually redirect them. So just to let you know, what your neighbor says and what your friends say, or the person in the park, it may not be true. You really have to we spend a lot of time keeping ourselves abreast and updated with the schools, what's going on, etc. So, just having the right information is really important. Anything else, Danielle, you want to sort of?
No, I think you're covering that pretty well. There's a lot of information out there, and we want to help you filter through it to get.
Yes, exactly. Yes, it's been a bit of a, I mean, some of the things that have come to me is like saying, oh, they're not gonna, like one family I've been working with says, oh, I heard that they're not gonna care about siblings this year. I'm like, I don't think that's true. Or, there just seems to be like all of a sudden this COVID has created a pile of like mountain of just wrong things. And I just don't want anyone that, who comes to us, who works with us, to even get caught up in that.
Yeah. Have there been any misconceptions out in the audience that you've come across that we can maybe help you sort through? Feel free to write some comments.
Right, exactly.
Also feeling free to reach out to us through our email addresses.
Right. I mean, we're very open about that. And like I said, we take in, when we take in admission consultant clients, we take in your child and we put together a complete picture, because without your child, that picture is not complete. And it's really, really important to put together a good case for your family.
And so it looks like some comments that people are having in our Facebook are just asking about timelines for the application process.
Right.
Basically start now.
Yeah, basically, I mean, start yesterday, not now, starting yesterday. I think that putting together a school list, going through, I mean, there's several ways to do research. So this is how, go through the school list, talk to the families, talk to people who you know at those schools, but look at sort of like what you want, what you think you want. I mean, we can change that down the line, but you need an initial draft, because if you don't have a draft, we don't have anything to work with. So the first thing you need to do is put together a list of schools that you think might be of most interest to you. Timeline in terms of is really, really now. Like this is a perfect place to start. Once you do that, you need to go and sign up and figure out when all the tours are, when all the whether it's virtual, whether it's in person. I mean, this is going to vary per school. So it's really important to just get on that list right away. And in terms of timeline, if you want to prepare your child for any of this stuff, I would recommend not going too far past the summer. I would start like now. Even if you're going to go away for the summer for a month or two, I think helping your child, getting a few sessions in, right, early on, getting them on track. And then, we can even continue via Zoom if needed to be. But it would be nice if the children can come before the summer vacations and we meet them and we can work with them in person. Our Upper East Side office is open. We're doing good. So,
especially with the little ones, just like the admissions process relies so much on social skills. We work a lot on the social emotional end of things. the beginnings of sessions and just getting kids into these new environments, which are going to be very new for a lot of kids right now. So if you start that as early as possible, it will be the most beneficial to your child to help them ease into the whole process.
Right. And it's really important. Then once during the summer and the fall is when it really begins in terms of that's when you're going to have the play dates, the Zooms, the sessions. But getting organized right now will save you a lot of time, because if you're applying to 10, 12 schools, which I recommend that personally, I know I get pushback from it, but this is what I've seen over the years. That's 10, 12 parent interviews. That's, applications. That's 10, 12 children interviews. So it's a lot. So, but summer is a good time. If you start now, you'll find yourself honestly ahead of 90% of the people who start this process. So it'll be much less stressful. A lot of people come last minute, and that becomes very, very stressful for everyone.
Absolutely.
So the fact that you're here on Facebook, you're listening to this, means that you're already like way ahead of a lot of people.
And it may seem like common sense as well, but a spreadsheet and a calendar devoted just to this information are going to be your best friends.
Right.
Signing up for a consult, we'd be happy to help you set those up. Keeping track of all of these various deadlines for various schools and links and statuses of applications and submission points. As you're starting this timeline, starting it now, you can ease up to it as well, just like your child.
And also you'll figure out which schools absolutely you don't want. I mean, the best thing to start is, a lot of people are like, there are over 100 something private schools in New York City. Yes, but start out with the ones, maybe one thing to say is look at, there's several things to consider, right? Commute. There is factors of, do you want, single sex or co-ed schools? There's many factors here, but eliminating what you don't want actually helps more. Because then we have something better to work on, because just keep adding school names because you heard it from a neighbor or a friend is not really helpful. And it's really important to keep centered through this process in that, and which is something I spend a lot of time helping families keep centered, because what you're going to find out is that as the process continues and the intensity increases, so does this misinformation. So does, oh, well, but my child did not have an interview there. Oh, my child's interview lasted 10 minutes. Does that mean he's out? There's a lot of, all of a sudden, this sort of the rumor mill starts, right? So it's really important to kind of stay course. And this is something that we help families do, because it's very hard when you're in the middle of this and you see the same parents, the same families. That's what you're going to see at all the schools. It's stressful, and then that's when kind of things start snowballing. So it's important, if you get organized before and ahead of time and have a better idea what you want. Generally, we don't expect anyone to know everything, right? You can go to a school and you can change your mind. That's fine, but keeping an open mind and starting with a longer list and starting now.
Yes, it's easier to cross things off your list than to add more once the process is started.
Right.
Actually, a couple of you have already taken advantage of our free consult option here. I've seen a few things get scheduled on our calendar. If you are considering wanting to talk with us specifically about your child, I would head on over to our website to reserve your time before it is gone.
Yes.
Thank you guys for jumping on that so quickly. We really appreciate it. And we do look forward to working with you even more specifically.
Now, in terms of, for those of you, I know this is private school, but we call Hunter College Elementary the private public school. That's another one that if you guys are considering also scheduling consultation, that process has not changed. They're still doing the same, and we don't expect that to change. So I think the theme of this year, I advise everyone, the way I look at it is, if I had a 4-year-old now, what would I do? First thing I would do is get organized and keep all my options open, every single one I have, because we're in the education flux in this city. Even private schools are changing how things are going. So just, rolling with the punches a little bit more. Maybe expect some things to change with certain private schools. I'm hearing things here and there, but I don't want to talk about it because it's not confirmed yet. But just keeping an open mind, and it's our job to really keep you abreast of anything that's drastic. So.
Okay, and then I do see another comment asking about what the best entry point is, elementary versus middle versus high school for all of these schools.
Oh, yes, that's an excellent question.
Yes.
So if you look at it, the way I look at this is when you're starting with kindergarten entry, you're effectively, that's where the class starts. So this is where sort of you as a family are more important than the child. So as your child gets, because your child has very little academic background, right? They're 4, so they don't have, as your child goes through the process and goes through elementary school, middle school, and high school entry become a lot more about your child and their academic background and about the tests. You know, private schools have not eliminated any tests. The IC and the SSAT, who are the 2 private school admissions tests that are used, are actually quite difficult. So if you can afford it, and if you can get into a school that you like for kindergarten, that's would be my suggestion. Oh, yes, that's an excellent question.
Sorry, hold
so
on
if
one
you
second.
look at it, the way I look at this is when you're starting with kindergarten entry. Okay.
There we go. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, I only opened our video on Facebook too, making sure I was getting all the questions.
Right. So it's really you know, if you want to, I mean, middle school entry and high school entry are equally challenging, if not more. So if you really want to get your child into a private school, kindergarten is a start. It's the most important point because you're buying the right to be at that school for 12 years, especially if they're a K through 12 school. We do have I've had many clients who have successful entries. Now, if you want to save your money and try for middle and school entry and high school entry, that's fine too. But just be aware then that the academic grades and the test scores of your child and how your child interviews become more important than you. So it's just kind of like at kindergarten, of course your child matters. That's not what I was trying to say, but as the academic score of your child matters more as they go through, as the years go up. Middle school less and high school the most. A lot of schools, private schools, take a lot of students from top public schools for high school entry who score well. That's a given, and they mix it up. So, you know, there are fewer spots. Depends on the school, but if you can get in kindergarten, that's great. If you can't, it's not the end of the world either. Many, many successful families that I've had get into middle and high school entry points. There's also entry points that are not, like, let's say your child's in a public school. There are sometimes spots in the middle as well. So, but that's time for another discussion. Anything else?
I think that covers it. Sorry, I'm just answering a person.
Yeah, sure. Sure. I mean, I think, again, I think it's great that everyone is starting a bit early. We can get the ball rolling and make sure that you guys are taken care of, because it is important. Kindergarten entry is very important. Mm-hmm. And it requires, in my opinion, still to date, the most amount of work by the child and the family. It requires a lot of cooperation.
Yes. No, it is a big process, like BA said.
Yes.
Kids are just getting into the educational world, so there's a lot to put together and to think about as a family.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I'm just going to continue saying you should have a spreadsheet.
Right.
Keep track
and also just take this time right now. Like, I mean, one of the things I try to tell my families, I know it's not as easy to what's made this really hard this year is it's been harder to socialize, right? So a lot of the networking have been kind of broken. And that's what I hear from a lot of the families. They're like, oh, I knew this family last year. We were just about to be friends. And I know their oldest went to Dalton. I wanted to ask them questions, but I don't know them well enough, you know? Even if you don't know a family well enough, I can tell you one thing: people are dying for contact this year. Mm-hmm. Socialization, it's okay to just say, hey, I know, even if you don't know someone that well. What I'm finding this year is that when I pick up the phone and call people, they're more accessible. Like I spent 15 minutes talking to a former admissions director who had very little time last year, got 2 minutes in, and we've had many long dialogues this year. People are more open, they have more time, they're willing to share information. Please, as a part of your homework, do that at least. Go reach out to as many people as you can, because people want contact and they want to help, and we've all been living in this strange bubble. So people are, they're striving for contact. So if we can utilize that, that's great.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of a time-consuming instance right now, we do have a mother who commented, or a parent who commented, asking about, is there an order priority for having multiple kids applying to schools? Should you apply with the eldest child first, or what have you? If you could clarify if you want them all in one school or in multiple different schools for any given reasons, that would help us answer your question.
Yeah.
But yes, in terms of timelines with multiple children, goodness knows that's a thing we've for priorities.
Yes.
But definitely, if you do want all of your kids in a school at once, as soon as you know that it is a school that you want your children, maybe existing and soon to exist children, to go into a school, get your name and your family in the application process starting as soon as possible, to get that oldest child into the school, so that you are a name once the subsequent children are applying to that school.
Right.
Big A, have we had any families that you can recall off the top of your head that have had kids applying for multiple grades at the same school?
Yes.
They would all follow the same timeline, but if you can think of any anecdotal situations.
Well, yes, there's several, and it goes back to sort of what's really the most important. I mean, in many situations, the focus really is the kindergarten entry. And typically with the older students, what you might find that you might want to send them to a different school. I mean, that's a lot of parents do that, actually. Like we used to see more in New York City families in the same schools, right? But that has changed over the years because there are just more options. Certain kids do better in certain schools, and they like one school for one child. But I mean, I have 3 kids, and they're all in 3 different schools. Yeah, so it makes your life more complicated. But in our situation, we thought that was the best for my family. So it really depends. But I think that, and that's one side. The other side is if you have 3, well, that creates more pressure. So I'm not sure. It's going to depend on the number of spots, what grades they're applying into, and what school it is, and what the sibling and the legacy priorities are for that particular school. So it's going to depend on, spots.
Yeah, so different factors for different schools to be applying to.
I mean, this is a very individual case. Like, I would have to sit down and talk to your family, understand what's going on before I can even make like a more specific recommendation.
Definitely. So one of our consults would be a perfect opportunity. I'll send it in the comments so that we can get that rolling for you. And while I'm sending that out, this is actually something that we have been seeing a lot of. Big A, if you could go into a bit of information about moving from a public school to a private school for middle school.
Yes. Actually, that happens quite a lot. That's happened before COVID. That's we see a lot of kids who went to public preschools and elementary schools who apply to private schools. There's a lot. But that means that you really have to ace the tests, like the IC. That's typically, so I would definitely, if you're going to do that, that test is at least 2 grades above level. So I would recommend you start preparing for that test. You really need to make sure that your child does really well on the IC. Recommendations, that's a really big one. Some public teachers, school teachers know how to write the recommendations, and others don't for private schools. So that's another thing to keep in mind. But this is pretty common. This is not, a lot of people do that actually. But, we do have a lot of kids do get in. But again, it goes back to what I said before, your child is going to matter more than you. So anything you can do in that situation, sports activities help. A lot of things help.
Other extracurriculars, maybe have a lot of literary magazines or programs.
It's like a little college admissions process at that point. Honestly, applying to middle and high school level private schools is not much different than applying for a college. Mm-hmm. You have the child interview, not the 4-year-old play date, but a real interview. You have the parent interview. You have the, the essay from the kid. You got, the parent essay. You got a lot more factors going into it. You got the test. You have the recommendations. So it's got a bit more wheels turning. So, but it's doable. But you have to spend much more time. That's what I recommend. If you're applying to top middle schools or high schools, that even takes more time on many fronts. So,
okay, I'm seeing a lot of you joining us tonight. I've also signed up for consultations. We do look forward to to getting into the nitty-gritties with all of your information to help you guys get started.
Yeah, in a few weeks, just subscribe or like our page or go to our website and sign up for our newsletter, because in a few weeks, we're going to have another private school session about the child assessment piece. Mm-hmm. So if you want to find out about what private schools are looking for, what they want to assess, how do they go about it? I mean, that's something, that we've been doing for a really long time. So we can talk about that.
Definitely warrants its own night, with the elementary process varying pretty greatly from the middle school process.
And then we'll have another session and talk about more specifically about the middle and high school process.
Yeah. Let's see if there are any other questions. Oh, let's see. So do results on the 4th grade state tests matter, or is the IC test separate for middle schools? So
go ahead. You can answer that.
Yeah, a little bit of a different year, but if you have opted your child into taking the Common Core exams, the state test scores can definitely be added as a part of your application, because they're going to be seeing the report cards anyway when you are submitting your application processes. But most middle schools do require the IC exam, ISEE, or the SSAT exam for part of the admissions process. A couple schools here and there may have waived that requirement, but that is going to be on a school-by-school, case-by-case situation. But if your child does well on the 4th grade Common Core exams, which are being administered right now for ELA, have started, dates will vary depending on your school. But if your child does well, it can only help their application.
Right. I recommended all my parents this year that I've consulted to take the test, because at the end of the day, if you have prepared for it and if your child does well on it, why not? The worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to get a bit more education. They're going to learn new things. This test, the IC test, just one thing that I really want to emphasize for those who are looking into middle and high school, this is a really hard test. We have many parents who come to us who say, my child has great grades and did great on the state test or whatever test they might have taken. And so we only need 6 sessions to prepare for the IC, and then this is a very difficult test. It's 2 grades above level. And it's very challenging from a time constraint. Because of that, you have about maybe 50 to 60 seconds per question, and not even that in certain sections.
Especially that, yes.
Yes, exactly. So knowing it's really important for children to master everything that is on this test to be able to do it quickly. Yep. It cannot be at the learning level. It cannot be at that point. So it requires quite a few sessions, and it's like a mini SAT, actually. It's the same company that creates the SAT, creates the IC.
Yeah, so it's definitely more than 6 sessions is necessary for most kids.
Yes.
So in the first few sessions, we can hammer out and build out all of the foundational skills.
Yes, exactly.
A little bit lacking that may need to be reinforced with them, and then getting into the formatting of the exam, just being familiar with that, and then being able to spend some time working on it in a timed kind of test-like capacity.
And that's one thing that if you are applying for middle schools next year, you need to start that IC prep now. Not you cannot wait. It takes months because your child has not, it's nothing to do with being bright. A lot of people come and say, oh, my child is really bright. No, but he hasn't had the material. This material has not been given to the children. They're 2 grades level ahead. And they're given in a format on top of that that's significantly more consuming and not in a classroom setting situation. So that's, please, if you are really serious about middle school entry, high school entry, especially for, and going to take the ICR, that you need to start like yesterday.
Definitely for 9th grade entry, because 8th grade, 9th grade, and 10th grade kids are all taking the same exam and seeing the same content for high school admissions. There's a bit of
please don't believe when people say this year test scores are not going to matter and this and that. It matters. It's just, I don't like when people say that, because it frustrates me, because I feel like you need to give your child the best opportunity to take this test and do well on it.
Especially even that, the chance to take this test. How many of you, when you were growing up, were anxious test takers or didn't love taking tests? Having your child be able to practice familiarity with the formatting and the time constraints on this brand new exam that they've not necessarily had a lot of exposure to, that will go a long way to help them feel a lot more comfortable with the whole process too. Just like with the little kindergartners getting used to the whole schooling process, how many of us in middle school would have benefited from a little bit more exposure to some standardized exams before we were sitting for them, so that we really let our knowledge shine?
Yes, right. But this is a great time. We have time now. So This is perfect. Like, this is not November, which is great. So
yes. And yes, we absolutely can help you along with the admissions process, as well as help your child prepare for the IC exam. We have all of our package options available on our registration site. I'm going to pop that link in our comments. But if you would like to schedule your consult with us first, kind of figure out what your timeline, where your child kind of is here and there, then we can help you determine how many sessions might be most beneficial for your family during this process.
And we give, the minute your child comes, we do give the full length IC test, so as our diagnostic. So Danielle froze. Sorry. So it's we start from there. It's a 2.5-hour test, so it's not easy. Plus, there's an essay portion, which actually is a lot of time needs to be spent on that as well. It's not graded, but it's a really important piece of information that your child will give to the school.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I don't think I froze. Hopefully I didn't freeze. I was popping a link into the comments.
Oh, okay.
So
it looks like your faces are sorry about that.
I was concentrating very hard to make sure I typed our registration link correctly.
Any questions? Like I said, we're here, but we're here all the time. Like, this information, the earlier you start, the better. I mean, I just kind of want to summarize what we talked about here. 1, start now, get organized. 2, get your school choices in. It may not be a perfect list, but a general list at this point is just fine. Go through the school websites, look at what they're doing, sign up for virtual tours, real tours, whatever there's there, anything you can find. 4th, make sure you make your appointment with your preschool director, if you have one, to find out how she's going to lead the process. Every preschool is different. And then network and find people who've gone to these schools you want and talk to them. Just engage if you can. So and then make sure now, make either an appointment with me to do, if you have any specific questions, like I said, 15 minutes appointments for free. And then you can also bring your child in for, if you want to get them evaluated, do a diagnostic initially, we're happy to do that. So you got to attack everything at once. So that's kind of like in a nutshell.
Yes, and definitely starting it now will help alleviate some of the headaches that can sometimes happen when things all pile up, which every school having their own different deadlines and
requirements. November, everyone freaks out. All my clients start figuring out about mid-October, and things just kind of go crazy into Christmas. And then there's kind of like this calm before the storm.
especially if you are considering applying to private schools as well as to something like the Hunter College Elementary School
Yes.
option, since those are two vastly different processes.
Right. We don't know what's going to happen with the GNT next year. We have no idea. It looks like we're going to have a new mayor, new education director. Who knows? We really don't know. But at the end of the day, like, we're an education company, so we are here to help your child and in any way that we can, whatever school they're applying to.
Okay. So actually, we have closed our downtown office location, and we are just operating on the Upper East Side. Sorry for that. I do remember you and your little girls coming into our office location a few years ago. It was lovely to lovely seeing them, and good to see you back here again now.
Yeah.
Yes, just the Upper East Side, 177 East 87th Street, 4th floor.
Yes.
I have that address correct.
And then we're going to evaluate this fall, depending on how things go. I mean, we don't really want to, the more offices, the harder to manage in this environment. So we want to make, our priority has been in keeping everyone safe. I mean, we were not, once we were allowed to open in July, we've had a pretty good run this year. And we opened it at the end of August, right? September. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we opened up. I had it up there at the end of July to start getting the office ready for people to come in, and I think we slowly started bringing people in
August.
In August, once we had all of our safety protocols and
everything in place.
Right.
And we still do, and like I said, we have plenty of kids there. You know, it's just we didn't want to stretch our staff out having to manage multiple offices at this point. So, but you know, that could change any minute depending on what happens next year. You're just you know, going with the flow. At least the rents are cheaper this year. So
beneficial to all.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, definitely figuring out kind of as it goes. But whether you're local to the Upper East Side or you want to do sessions online, we have a lot of options.
Yeah, online sessions, we have had kids, we have so many kids online, and the teachers have done an incredible. We have like really, really amazing teachers, and I'm not saying that because my kids are tutored by them too. So I mean, you know, we have incredible teachers who know how to engage kids even online, who are just absolutely been just amazing through this whole process, right, Danielle? I mean, we've had teachers who had to go to homes of parents and because of certain situations, and I mean, everyone really has bent over backwards. So if you have any need, like, we're here. Like, we're here to help you or your child in any way we can.
Definitely. No, our curriculum team and our tutors pivoted so amazingly over this past year to be able to help kids online, and it's turned out even better than we could have imagined, especially since
kids have done incredible. Our kids have done incredible. Like, all my clients got into their schools, and like this has been like, you know, through all this, the light, there was some light at the end of the tunnel where the kids have done well, the families have been happy. It's been a really incredible year from that perspective. So we're very grateful, and we're very grateful that you're here, and we're very grateful that we can help your children.
So does anybody else have any other questions in the chat? Otherwise, we'll probably wind down in a couple of minutes. I'll give you a moment to pop some questions in here, and I'll go check our emails to make sure nothing has come in that way. But I think, like Bigay said, kind of to summarize things, start now, start yesterday, so that we can help ease you guys through the process with all the steps that are going to take place. And once again, I'll say, get a spreadsheet.
Yes.
For this, I have a wonderful template that has worked for some families over the years. So if that's of interest to you, reach out to us.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
Okay, so it looks like we don't have any other questions for the time being. But if you guys do think of something, you can sign up for our consults. It's in the chat in a few different places. You can also feel free to send us an email at info@brightkidsnyc.com. Oh, okay, let's see. One more question. So if we didn't get in at kindergarten, should we try again for first grade?
Yes, of course, but it's a different process. That I think that it's going to depend on the school and what the attrition rate is and what's going on. We can talk about this later, but you may have a better shot middle of the kindergarten year.
Definitely. I see we did.
Sometimes middle entries are their own whole conversation. If you feel free to schedule a consultation. I'm happy to help you with that.
But like I said, so we have our consult link in the chat in a few different places. info@brightkidsnyc.com. We'll put you in touch with some of our account managers for some general questions you may have about packages. We also have a lot of helpful information on our website, bright-kids.com. It went through a lovely revamp last year. We used this time very well to make sure we get as much information out there for parents. I think this will also be linked onto our private school pages once we wrap up, so that it will be available for you guys for future viewing if you would like.
Yep.
But I think that about covers it. Yes. Thank you
so much. Have a wonderful evening. Stay happy, stay healthy, and keep in touch.
Okay, so we will see you guys hopefully back here again for our next live chat in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Bye.